Hello, welcome back to the Southern Bible Thumper channel. For this upload, we will be reading Judges chapter 9, and we will need to get ready because this is 57 verses. So I anticipate this might be at least 8 minutes of reading. And Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem unto his mother's brethren, and communed with them, and with all the family of the house of his mother's father, saying, Speak, I pray you, in the ears of all the men of Shechem, whether is better for you, either that all the sons of Jerubbaal, which are 60 persons, reign over you, or that one reign over you. Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. And his mother's brethren spake of him in the ears of all the men of Shechem all these words, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, He is our brother. And they gave him 60 pieces of silver out of the house of Baalberith, wherewith Abimelech hired vain and light persons which followed him. And he went unto his father's house at Ophrah, and slew his brethren, the sons of Jerubbaal, being 60 persons, upon one stone. Notwithstanding yet Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. And all the men of Shechem gathered together, and all the house of Millo, and went and made Abimelech king by the plain of the pillar that was in Shechem. And when they told it to Jotham, he went and stood in the top of Mount Gerizim, and lifted up his voice and cried, and said unto them, Hearken unto me, ye men of Shechem, that God may hearken unto you. The trees went forth on a time to anoint a king over them, and they said unto the olive tree, Reign thou over us. But the olive tree said unto them, Should I leave my fatness, wherewith by me they honor God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, Come thou and reign over us. But the fig tree said unto them, Should I forsake my sweetness and my good fruit, and go to be promoted over the trees? Then the tree said unto the vine, Come thou and reign over us. And the vine said to them, Should I leave my vine, which cheereth God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? Then said all the trees unto the bramble, Come thou and reign over us. And the bramble said unto the trees, If in truth ye anoint me king over you, then come and put your trust in my shadow. And if not, let fire come out of the bramble, and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Now therefore, if ye have done truly and sincerely, in that ye have made Abimelech king, and if ye had dwelt well with Jerubbaal in his house, and have done unto him according to the deserving of his hands, for my father fought for you, and adventured his life far, and delivered you out of the hand of Midian, and ye are risen up against my father's house this day, and have slain his sons 60 persons upon one stone, and have made Abimelech, the son of his maidservant, king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. If ye then have dealt truly and sincerely with Jerubbaal, and with his house this day, then rejoice ye in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out from Abimelech, and devour the men of Shechem, and the house of Milo, and let fire come out from the men of Shechem, and from the house of Milo, and devour Abimelech. And Jotham ran away, and fled, and went to Beer, and dwelt there for fear of Abimelech his brother. When Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech, that the cruelty done to the 60 sons of Jerubbaal might come, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech their brother, which slew them, and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in the killing of his brethren. And the men of Shechem set liers in wait for him in the top of the mountains, and they robbed all that came along that way by them. And it was told Abimelech. And Gaal, the son of Ebed, came with his brethren, and went over to Shechem. And the men of Shechem put their confidence in him. And they went out into the fields, and gathered their vineyards, and trode the grapes, and made merry, and went into the house of their God, and did eat and drink, and cursed Abimelech. And Gaal, the son of Ebed, said, Who is Abimelech, and who is Shechem, that we should serve him? Is not he the son of Jerubbaal, and Zabul his officer? Serve the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for why should we serve him? And would to God this people were under my hand, then would I remove Abimelech. And he said to Abimelech, Increase thine army, and come out. And when Zabul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaal, the son of Ebed, his anger was kindled. And he sent messengers unto Abimelech privily, saying, Behold, Gaal, the son of Ebed, and his brethren be come to Shechem, and behold, they fortify the city against thee. Now therefore, up by night, thou and the people that is with thee, and lie in wait in the field. And it shall be that in the morning, as soon as the sun is up, thou shalt rise early, and set upon the city. And behold, when he and the people that is with him come out against thee, then mayest thou do to them as thou shalt find occasion. And Abimelech rose up, and all the people that were with him by night, and they laid wait against Shechem in 4 companies. And Gaal, the son of Ebed, went out and stood in the entering of the gate of the city. And Abimelech rose up, and the people that were with him from lying in wait. And when Gil saw the people, he said to Zabul, Behold, there come people down from the top of the mountains. And Zebul said unto him, Thou seest the shadow of the mountains, as if they were men. And Gil spake again, and said, See, there come people down by the middle of the land, and another company come along by the plain of Meonamium. Then said Zebul unto him, Where is now thy mouth, wherewith thou saidst, Who is Abimelech, that we should serve him? Is not this the people that thou hast despised? Go out, I pray now, and fight with them. And Gael went out before the men of Sachem, and fought with Abimelech. And Abimelech chased him, and he fled before him, and many were overthrown and wounded, even unto the entering of the gate. And Abimelech dwelt at Arumah, and Zebul thrust out Gael and his brethren, that they should not dwell in Sachem. And it came to pass on the morrow that the people went out into the field, and they told Abimelech. And he told the people, and divided them into 3 companies, and laid wait in the field, and looked, and behold, the people were come forth out of the city. And he rose up against them, and smote them. And Abimelech and the company that was with him rushed forward and stood in the entering of the gate of the city. And the 2 other companies ran upon all the people that were in the fields and slew them. And Abimelech fought against the city all that day, and he took the city, and slew the people that was therein, and beat down the city, and sowed it with salt. And when all the men of the tower of Shechem heard that, they entered into a hold of the house of the god Berith. And it was told Abimelech that all the men of the tower of Shechem were gathered together. And Abimelech gat him up to Mount Zalmon, he and all the people that were with him. And Abimelech took an axe in his hand, and cut down a bow from the trees, and took it, and laid it on his shoulder, and said unto the people that were with him, What ye have seen me do, make haste and do as I have done. And all the people likewise cut down every man his bow, and followed Abimelech, and put them to the hold, and set the hold on fire upon them, so that all the men of the tower of Shechem died also, about 1,000 men and women. Then Abimelech to Thebez, then went Abimelech to Thebez, and encamped against Thebez, and took it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and thither fled all the men and women, and all they of the city, and shut it to them, and gat them up to the top of the tower. And Abimelech came unto the tower, and fought against it, and went hard unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire. And a certain woman cast a piece of millstone upon Abimelech's head, and all to break his skull. Then he called hastily unto the young man his armor-bearer, and said unto him, Draw thy sword, and slay me, that men say not of me, A woman slew him. And his young man thrust him through, and he died. And when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed every man unto his place. Thus God rendered the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did unto his father, in slaying his 70 brethren. And all the evil of the men of Shechem did God render upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham the son of Jerubbaal. We're going to be summarizing Judges chapter 9. This will detail the rise of King Abimelech. He is first mentioned in Judges chapter 8, verse 31. He is Gideon's son, and we learn in Judges chapter 8, verse 30, that Gideon had 70 sons because he had many wives. Then in verse 31, Abimelech is mentioned because his mother was a concubine to Gideon, meaning that she was a sexual partner without marriage. She lived in the refuge city Sachem and had a son for Gideon named Abimelech. So now that we get in Judges chapter 9, also, we just want to establish that Jerubbaal, this name that we see, this is Gideon, and he is mentioned. This name was first given to him by his father in Judges chapter 6, verse 32, and so we just keep seeing him being mentioned as Jerubbaal, but Jerubbaal is Gideon. So in Judges chapter 9, now we see his son Abimelech being detailed. So Abimelech goes to his mother's relatives in Shechem and asks, Well, hey, is it better for all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons or Gideon? Would it be better for 70 to rule or for 1 to rule? Remember, I'm your bone and flesh. So his mother's relatives agree, and they give him 70 silver coins. And with those 70 silver coins, he hired worthless and reckless people to follow him around. The King James Version call these men vain and light. So this is just supposed to give the appearance of him having power before he even gets it, to have a group of people around him where he's the leader and he calls the shots in his group. So then Abimelech kills 70 of his brothers with 1 stone. And Jotham the youngest hid and survived. The people of Shechem made Abimelech king in verse 6. And Jotham, the son that survives that brutal attack, he hears about Abimelech being honored as king. And he gives this parable from verse 7 to verse 15. I don't completely understand, but the gist of it is uh, he gives this example. Hey, the trees go out to one king to be, if the trees go out to one tree and wanted him to be king, okay, they went to the olive tree, and the olive tree said, hey, should I leave my abundance to be king? And then the trees then go to the fig tree and say, hey, reign over us. And the fig tree says, hey, should I leave my sweetness to be king? And then the trees said to the vine, come reign over us. But the vine says, should I leave my wine to be king? And then the trees go to the bramble and says, hey, reign over us. And the bramble says, well, okay, well, if you're honoring me in good faith, then this is good. But if this is not done correctly, if you're not honoring me as king in the right way, then let fire come and devour. I don't completely understand why that's there. But again, we can tell that he's speaking because we see the quotes beginning. Although, again, I will say the punctuation is incorrect over and over because we see that starting again. And you should only have a quote closing once the person is completely done speaking. And if you're going to introduce a second quote, you should also close it with a second quote, but whatever. Point is, from verse 7 to 15, there's that parable. Now we get to verses 16 to 21. That's when he just speaks clearly. And as he's standing at the top of this mountain, because that's where he's at, and he's speaking, he continues and he says, he reminds them that Gideon's father, his good deeds provided Israel with peace. And then he mentions that Abimelech killed 70 of Gideon's sons and is the offspring of a female servant. He says that if Abimelech's position was made in good faith, then let everyone rejoice. But if it was made through nefarious means, let fire consume the leaders of Shechem and Beth-millo, and let fire consume Abimelech. Then Jotham left to live in Beer because of Abimelech. Verse 23. Abimelech reigned 3 years over Israel, and God sent an evil spirit to Abimelech and his men of Shechem, who dealt with him dishonestly. And verse 24. The cruelty done to Gideon's 70 sons, or Jerubbaal, 70 sons, saying that the violence might come, and the blood be laid upon Abimelech, their brother, and the men of Shechem that helped make this possible. In verse 25, the men of Shechem began robbing people. Abimelech was notified. Or the men of Shechem, they organized people to rob, and it says the leaders of Shechem put men in ambush against him. So this must have affected Abimelech's leadership in some way. But the leaders of Shechem, the same men that appointed him to be king, also started appointing people to commit crimes or robbery. Then there was a man named Gaal. Gaal moved into Shechem, and he had relatives there. And the leaders of Shechem, these same men that were organizing these robberies, put confidence into Gaal. They organized a party in their God's house, celebrating and reviling Abimelech, talking badly about Abimelech. Verses 28 through 29, Gaal begins to, get confidence. He's starting to get gassed up. And he points out that it would make more sense to serve the men of Hamor, Shechem's father, instead of serving Abimelech. And if he were leader, he would remove Abimelech and challenge him to increase his army and meet up. Verses 30 through 33. Zabel, the city leader, was upset by this and told Abimelech what was happening and advised him to ambush them at night. Verses 34 through 41. Abimelech and 4 groups of men prepare to do this. 4 companies, 4 groups. And with the help of Zebul, drove out Gael and his relatives so they could not live there. Verses 42 through 45. Abimelech and his 3 companies, after he defeated Gael and those men, then he divided his men again into 3. So then he killed the people in the field and killed the city inhabitants of Shechem and then sowed it with salt. Verses 46 through 49. When the leaders of Shechem heard about this destruction, they went into the stronghold, and a stronghold is a dwelling place or a secure area, at a place called El Berith. Abimelech heard about this. Him and his company then cut down brushwood bundles and put them at the stronghold and burned it to the ground, killing 1,000 people. Then we get to verses 50 to 54. Abimelech then went to a city called Thebez with the same intent to kill the inhabitants. These people went into their stronghold or secure place. Abimelech intended to burn it with fire, but an unnamed woman threw a rock at his head, severely injuring him and crushing his skull. He begs his assistant to kill him by sword in verse 34 because he did not want his memory to include that a woman killed him. So instead of a woman killing him, please just kill me. Which it's still recorded here anyway that a woman did this, so, whatever. Verse 55. When Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they went home. Thus, or because of this, God returned the deeds of Abimelech and God returned the evil of Shechem. And this was a result of Jotham's curse. So a couple things that I wanted to highlight or just bring attention to. Jotham's curse and God's interference are cited as the reasons for this outcome. Again, Samuel is the one who wrote the book of Judges. So we have to remember that. We also have to remember God didn't say that he's the reason why this happened. Actually, God doesn't speak at all in this chapter. So that's something else to make a note of. Also, consequences are tied to actions. God already gave a law, don't murder. So, while I can see, I'm not going to say that it's not that this didn't happen because of a curse or because of God's interference, but God already laid out a law. He said, don't do this. And when you make certain choices, consequences are tied to certain choices. And that makes more sense to me than believing that God is instrumental in every single action that happens or every single consequence. It seems more like if you make certain choices, you'll probably experience certain outcomes. Abimelech had already conquered Shechem and removed the threat. But then he was bloodthirsty and went to another city wanting to kill those people. If you attack someone's life, they might fight to survive. Being a terrible person does not ban or it doesn't disqualify a person from being a leader. That's another thing we need to keep in mind here, that people will still honor someone who is terrible and morally corrupt. People, God didn't appoint this. God appointed judges. People appointed kings. And the people appointed him to be a king. That's something you need to pay attention to. Morality is not really something that people live by as a standard. It's a weapon to use once somebody attains a certain status. That's really how it's done. But just want to put that out there because it's not the elites. It's not the people it's not God. It's not the elites. It's people who let this happen, who appoint terrible people, who support terrible people. Zebul, the same guy who alerted Abimelech that, hey, the city is being stirred up against you. This same guy was close enough to Gael to when the ambush began, Gael said to him, well, hey, there's people coming down out of the mountains. And Zabel responds to him, no, that's just the shadows. Don't worry about it. And then when more people came from the city, and Gael said, hey, look, it's people coming out of the city. Zabel then turned on him and say, oh, where's your mouth now? Where's all that talk now? So he was physically close enough to Gael to have this conversation with him, but also close enough in terms of a relationship where Gael felt comfortable enough to think Zabel would be just as shocked as he was. Zabel was working on both sides. But again, that's treachery following the treacherous. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I tried not to make it so long, but this again was 57 verses. God bless you, and I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I'm going to eat some more mac and cheese, and actually collard greens and potato salad are the best combo to get in one scoop. I love you. Have a wonderful day.